Hello there, and welcome to my Unison League channel, and I will be your host, Timely. So, I really wanted to give you guys an update on my build so far, and how I'm trying to improve, and hopefully it helps you guys out trying to get stronger for Duel and Colo. Now, I do not want to keep secrets from you guys. If I find out a way to get stronger and to become overpowered without spending too much money, I'm going to tell you guys to help you. So first, let's talk about my weapons, okay? If you look in my main slot for my staff, I have a Dark Sung staff. This is an Attack Testament XL for my Starburst, which gives it a really huge AP boost. Could be 70 to 80 AP, I'm not sure. Now to complement that, I have an Elevation Opener, which increases the proc rate on that by 20%, so in the first 30 seconds of battle, I have a 40 to 45% chance to proc my Dark Sung staff, which is extremely good. I could take out players that have very low null proc rates, and if they're not wearing nulls at all. Now, if you look at all of my other staves, I make sure that I have an extremely high proc rate. I have 2 Sealed Testament procs for extra proc rate, okay? They're skill level 7, max infused, very high proc rate. I have a Sacred Seal proc, I have a Fatal Art proc, and then everything else is skill level 6, increasing the proc rate even further. So it is very, very important to have a high proc rate. I even have the Elevate Opener and the Xeno Staff, and since that takes away 2 of the slots I have in my weapons, that would decrease my proc rate. So what I do is I add 2 Magic Testament XL clothes in my subslots to make up for that. Now, I'm going to give you guys a little cheat sheet, okay, on what I put together over the years of playing this game, okay? Now, say you have 4 procs, and one of them is in your main slot. You would have a 35 to 40% chance to proc. But first, if you have 1 proc in your main slot and nothing else, you would have a 15 to 20% chance. So adding 3 more procs after that would only boost your proc rate up to 40%. Now, if you were to add 5 more procs after that, for a total of 9 procs, you would up your proc rate to 60 to 65%. Okay, guys, could go higher if you carry Concentrate or Elevation Openers. Now, always remember that. Keep that in the back of your head, okay? 1 proc in your main slot, 15 to 20% chance, or 15, 20, or 30% chance in your main slot. Depends on the proc. Add 3 more after that for a total of 4 procs. 35 to 40% chance. Now add 5 more after that for a total of 9 procs. 60 to 65% chance to proc. Now, you cannot ever achieve a 100% proc rate. It will never happen, because there is a thing called diminishing returns. It is impossible to get a 100% proc rate. You could only get very close to it. So it really comes down to preference. If you have 9 procs, you have a 60 to 65% chance to proc. But if you have 10 and then your 11th proc, you would only get like 1 to 2% more proc rate, or something like that, per piece of gear that you keep adding. The diminishing returns, it's not even worth it, in my opinion. So always keep that in mind, how many procs you need to actually have reliable DPS. Because if you have too many, you could be slacking in other areas that you can improve. Now let's talk about my defenses. So, as you see here, I have an Omni damage down in my main slot. It gives me a 35% mitigation. Now, that is not strong by itself, okay? You cannot just have 1 damage down proc and expect to live. You need stuff to supplement that. So you need your constant gears, like Stellar, God Gear, or other constant gears to up that percentage of mitigation. I have an Almighty Cut opener to increase my mitigation even further. So my two Stellars, my Almighty Cut, they both add up to 40% for the first 30 seconds of battle, and if I were to proc my Omni damage down, it would go up to 75% mitigation, which is extremely good. Now, to make sure that my damage down procs reliably, or somewhat reliably, I have a concentration opener to up my damage down proc by 20%, so it has a 40% chance to proc in the first 30 seconds of battle. Now, since I am a mage, I have indigenously high magic defense. I have lots of passives to boost my magic defense, so my defense is going to be very low. So against piercing moves like Break Thrust, Rage Slash, I could get hit very hard. So that's why I carry a physical null in my main slot. Now my physical null is not done yet. Hopefully when I get it max infused, the proc rate will be much higher. But when it is max infused and with my concentration opener, it should have a 45% chance to proc within the first 30 seconds of battle, which is really decent in my opinion. But it still looks like I'm very squishy. So to make me tankier, I carry these new set of abilities. I do not carry Ominous Omen anymore. I do not carry Hunt. Instead, I use Heaven's Breath and Healing Wind. Now, the reason why I like Heaven's Breath a lot is because now that you can max enhance it, it gives you 40% max HP. Now that is very good in my opinion, especially since as level cap keeps rising, so does the HP pool. So Heaven's Breath is going to increase your health much more over time. Now if you look at my Resurrection opener, I have Resurrection for the first minute of battle, right? Now, when you have Resurrection on your player character, and your Resurrection gets popped, it heals you for a percentage of your health, okay? So if you do not have Heaven's Breath active, you're going to only get a percentage of your health back, right? So when you have Heaven's Breath on, and then your Resurrection opener pops, you get more health back from your Resurrection. That is my opinion though. I think that Resurrection gives you a percentage of health back, not a stagnant amount of health back. So with my speculation, I believe that the higher the HP pool you have, the more health you get back from Resurrection. Which is why I think Heaven's Breath is a great option here. Okay, so now if you look over here, I have a regen opener. I cannot carry two, I can only carry one because I have a Resurrection opener. Now, a regen opener gives me a 12% regen. Now that is not strong by itself, so I carry Healing Wind. Healing Wind gives me a 3-stack regen, so I can have a 5-stack regen total. Now this is very important because after I pop my Heaven's Breath, I have an increased health pool, and that really complements my Healing Wind. It gives me more health because Healing Wind gives you a percentage of health back as well. So, the correct rotation when you are going into a duel and colo match, you could hit Heaven's Breath first, and then guard if you are attacked, and then when you take all that damage, you can pop Healing Wind after. Now keep in mind that once the regen opener is active, here's a little secret for you guys. Once regen opener is active, it is like starts from the very beginning, right? So say you are like 4 seconds in your regen and you're about to get your regen tick. Okay, in the middle of that, you can pop Healing Wind and put it up to 5 stacks, and then it'll heal with a 5-stack regen 1 second later instead of it being a 2-stack regen. You will never get like separate ticks of regen. Like you will never get like a 2-stack regen at this interval, and you'll never get a 3-stack regen at this interval. It'll always follow that same time scale. So you can time it. So when you get hit really hard, during your guard, you can hit Healing Wind, and then you should be close to your next tick of health that you get back from your regen. So do not, like, you know, struggle bust to get your Healing Wind up. You could use it as needed. And that is why I believe regen opener is very important here, is to start that time interval of 5 seconds every time, so that you could always time your Healing Wind and then get an insane amount of health back when you're like 2 seconds away of your next tick. And now lastly, let's talk about the monsters, okay? And mitigating monster damage. So I have 2 Xeno gears, right? And I have 2 Stellar gears. Now, Xeno gears, that's a very, very hard topic for me. I do not really know what they do just yet, okay? It says that it massively reduces the ability power of unison attacks and Great Spirit unison attacks. So, when players have tested it, they claim that each UR piece, or each Max Awaken piece, mitigates 10% damage. But that could be wrong. It could very well depend on the monster being used, because if you look at the ability or the skill itself, it says it reduces the ability power by a certain percentage, right? So if you're reducing the ability power by a certain percentage on a monster, it's going to be different for every monster. But to keep it simple, let's just say yes, it mitigates 10 to 20% unison attacks. And then if you look over here, like I said before, I have my 2 Stellars mitigating 20% damage as well. Now, if we take a look at Odin real quick. Odin removes Resurrection, War, damage nullifying effects, damage reflection, continued heal, and damage reduction effects from all enemies, but he does not do piercing damage, so he cannot remove the constants from Stellar Gear. So, would Stellar Gear actually work against mitigating damage against Branma and Odin and Scar? Most likely, in my opinion, and that's why I have them on. So as I have those 4 pieces of gear, that makes me very tanky at surviving unison attacks. And when we looked at Odin's ability before, it doesn't even say that it balances. Most monsters nowadays, they don't balance, they use karma, they use barrier removal. So Heaven's Breath is a great option now for mitigating even more of that damage. So you could have Almighty Cut, 2 Stellars, 2 Xenogears, Heaven's Breath, use it all at the very start. And then, as they pop unison, you're going to survive very easily. Now, to even complement your defenses even further, you could add Elemental Defense. So, I have 150 Wind Elemental Defense from Kroit. I have 150 Dark Elemental Defense from Odin. I have 100 Fire Elemental Defense from Noelle. I have 60 Light Defense from Cinderella, which is not that much, but I'm going to replace her soon. Shingen gives me 100 Water Defense, and then Tourbillon gives me 150 Time Elemental Defense. So I have elemental defenses all across the board except for Star, which is okay, because you can still stack Dark Elemental Defense pots and Light Elemental Defense pots for the same effect as stacking 1 Star Elemental Defense pot or something like that. Now, to improve, I'm probably going to replace some monsters that do not give me elemental pots and try to get all of those up to 400 elemental defense. So a great spawn to hit would be the monster spawn that gives you 2 pots right from the get-go, the 30 gem one. Now, monsters to look out for when increasing your elemental defense would be Juliet, Cleopatra, Horus, Paddy, and any of the other 34 cost monsters that add elemental defense. But Juliet, Cleopatra, and Horus add a fair amount of elemental defense for the low cost as well, and they're easier to get too. So yeah guys, that's pretty much all I have to say for now on how I am improving my Calo and Duel set. I hope I helped you guys out. If you guys liked the video, please leave a like and subscribe if you want more. I have to get going now. Peace.